The glass doors of Technova Corporation gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights as Naomi clutched the soaked delivery bags against her bright red jacket. Her sneakers squeaked against the marble floor, leaving small puddles from the torrential rain outside. She pushed her wet curls away from her face, trying to maintain some dignity as she approached the reception desk of the 30-story building that housed one of the most successful tech companies in the country. "Delivery for the 20th floor," she said to the receptionist, who barely looked up from her computer screen. "Elevator's broken. You'll have to take the stairs," the woman replied coldly, not even bothering to make eye contact with Naomi. 20 floors. Naomi's heart sank, but she needed this job. Every dollar mattered when you were supporting yourself and your grandmother on minimum wage delivery tips. She adjusted the heavy bags and headed toward the stairwell, her bright red jacket a stark contrast against the sterile white walls of the corporate lobby. By the time she reached the 20th floor, Naomi was breathing heavily. Her jacket clung to her skin, and her hair had begun to frizz from the humidity of her exertion. She pushed through the door marked Technova Development Floor, and immediately heard the sound of laughter and conversation. The entire floor was buzzing with activity. Employees in expensive suits and casual designer clothes mingled around computer workstations, and a large banner hung from the ceiling reading, "Annual Programming Challenge 2025. Food tables lined one wall, clearly where her delivery was intended to go. Finally, a tall programmer with slicked-back hair called out as he spotted her. "We've been waiting forever for the food. What took you so long?" Naomi set the bags down carefully on the designated table and began unpacking the orders. "I'm sorry for the delay. The elevator was out of service, so I had to take the stairs. Maybe if you got here on time, you wouldn't look like you just crawled out of a swimming pool," another programmer laughed, causing several others to join in. Naomi kept her head down, focusing on arranging the food containers. She had learned long ago that responding to cruel comments only made things worse. But today felt different. Today the laughter seemed louder, the stares more judgmental. "Hey delivery girl," a programmer named Brad called out, causing the entire group to turn toward her. "Since you're here, maybe you can settle a debate for us. We're trying to figure out the most efficient algorithm for data sorting. Any ideas?" The question was clearly meant as a joke. The 10 programmers gathered around, smirking and waiting for her to admit she had no idea what they were talking about. They expected her to mumble something about not understanding and hurry away with her empty bags. But Naomi surprised them. She looked up, meeting Brad's eyes directly. "Are you talking about comparison-based algorithms, or are you considering non-comparison methods like radix sort?" The laughter died instantly. The programmers exchanged confused glances. What?" Brad stammered. "Well," Naomi continued, her voice growing stronger, "if you're working with integer data, radix sort can achieve linear time complexity under the right conditions. But if you need stability and you're dealing with arbitrary comparison functions, merge sort might be your best bet for guaranteed n log n performance." The room fell completely silent. 10 of the most arrogant programmers in the company stood with their mouths open, staring at the soaked delivery girl who had just demonstrated more computer science knowledge in 30 seconds than they had expected from anyone outside their elite circle. "Lucky guess," Brad finally managed, his face turning red with embarrassment. "Or maybe," a deep voice said from behind the group, "you shouldn't judge people based on their appearance or their job." Everyone turned to see Christopher Hayes, the billionaire CEO of Technova Corporation, standing in the doorway. At 35, he was younger than most CEOs of major tech companies, but his reputation for innovation and business acumen was legendary. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and he wore a navy blue suit that probably cost more than Naomi made in 6 months. Wait, could this chance encounter change everything? Are you curious to see how a delivery girl's hidden genius will shake up an entire corporation? Subscribe to find out what happens when brilliance meets opportunity, and let me know in the comments what you think Naomi's background really is. Christopher walked slowly toward the group, his steel-gray eyes moving from the programmers to Naomi. "I couldn't help but overhear the conversation. And I have to say, I'm disappointed in what I just witnessed." Brad and his colleagues suddenly looked like scolded children. "Mr. Hayes, You were just humiliating someone based on assumptions," Christopher cut him off. "Someone who, from what I heard, just demonstrated more technical knowledge than I've seen from some of you in months." Naomi stood frozen, unsure whether she should slip away or stay. Her delivery uniform felt even more out of place now that the CEO himself was involved in the situation. Christopher turned to her directly. "I apologize for my employee's behavior. What's your name?" Naomi Johnson, she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Well, Naomi Johnson, it seems you know something about algorithms. Where did you learn about computer science? The programmers watched this exchange with growing horror. They had just been called out by their CEO for mocking someone who apparently had technical knowledge. Their annual performance reviews suddenly flashed before their eyes. I studied computer science in college, Naomi answered honestly. I graduated with honors from Howard University. The revelation hit the room like a bomb. A computer science graduate with honors was delivering their lunch because she couldn't find work in tech. The irony was not lost on anyone, especially Christopher. And you're delivering food instead of writing code because... Christopher prompted gently. Naomi hesitated. She had learned to keep her struggles private, but something about Christopher's genuine interest made her want to answer honestly. It's hard to get interviews when you don't have connections. And when you do get interviews, sometimes people have already made up their minds about who belongs in tech and who doesn't. The weight of her words settled over the room. Everyone understood exactly what she meant, and the programmers who had been laughing at her just minutes before now looked deeply uncomfortable. Christopher nodded slowly. I see. Well, Naomi, since you're here and we're in the middle of our programming challenge, I have a proposition for you. He walked over to one of the workstations and pulled up a complex coding problem on the screen. This is the challenge we've been working on today. It's designed to test advanced problem-solving skills and coding efficiency. If you can solve this problem, when you solve this problem, I think these gentlemen owe you an apology. And if you're interested, we should talk about a position here at Technova. The programmers exchanged panicked looks. They had just spent 3 hours working on this problem, and only 2 of them had managed to create working solutions. Naomi looked at the screen, then at Christopher, then at the 10 programmers who had mocked her. For years she had been told she didn't belong in tech. For years she had been passed over, overlooked, and dismissed. But now, finally, someone was giving her a chance to prove herself. I accept your challenge, she said, pulling off her wet jacket to reveal a green blouse underneath. But I'll need a computer. Christopher smiled and gestured to an empty workstation. Right this way. As Naomi sat down at the computer, the entire 20th floor of Technova Corporation gathered around to watch. The delivery girl they had laughed at was about to show them what she was really capable of. And none of them, not even Christopher, were prepared for what was about to happen. The workstation hummed to life as Naomi logged in with the guest credentials Christopher provided. The coding challenge appeared on the screen. A complex algorithmic problem involving optimal resource allocation across distributed networks. It was the kind of problem that separated good programmers from exceptional ones. Christopher pulled up a chair beside her, genuinely curious to see how she would approach the challenge. Take your time, he said. Most people need several hours for this one. Naomi studied the problem for exactly 47 seconds, her dark eyes scanning the requirements with laser focus. Around them, the 10 programmers who had mocked her stood in uncomfortable silence, still processing the revelation that their delivery girl was actually a computer science graduate. This is about finding the minimum spanning tree with dynamic weight adjustments, isn't it? Naomi asked, her fingers already moving across the keyboard. Christopher raised an eyebrow. That's a very good starting observation. Most people don't recognize the underlying structure that quickly. Brad, the programmer who had started the whole confrontation, shifted nervously. Lucky guess, he muttered under his breath, but his voice lacked conviction. Naomi ignored him completely. She opened a new file and began typing, her movements fluid and confident. Line after line of clean, efficient code appeared on the screen. She paused occasionally to think, but never hesitated about what to write next. She's using a modified version of Kruskal's algorithm, whispered Jennifer, one of the female programmers who had been watching silently. But look at how she's handling the dynamic weights. That's actually brilliant. Christopher leaned forward, increasingly impressed. Naomi wasn't just solving the problem, she was solving it elegantly. Her code was readable, efficient, and showed a deep understanding of both theoretical computer science and practical programming. Where did you work before delivery? Christopher asked as she continued coding. I had an internship at Data Flow Systems during college, Naomi replied without looking up from the screen. After graduation, I applied to hundreds of companies. Got a few interviews, but nothing worked out. Eventually, I had to take whatever job I could find to pay rent and take care of my grandmother. The room fell quieter as her story sank in. Here was someone with clear talent and education, forced into survival mode because the tech industry had failed to recognize her potential. Christopher watched her implement a particularly clever optimization. What happened at the interviews? Naomi's typing slowed for a moment. Different things. Sometimes they said I didn't have enough experience. Sometimes they said I wasn't a cultural fit. Sometimes they just went with other candidates. After a while, you start to wonder if it's something about you that people don't like. But you kept studying programming? Christopher asked. Every night after work, Naomi confirmed, her typing resuming its rapid pace. I do coding challenges online, read tech blogs, work on personal projects. I couldn't afford to let my skills get rusty just because no one would hire me. As she spoke, her solution began taking shape on the screen. The algorithm was not only correct but more efficient than anything the Technova programmers had produced. She was handling edge cases they hadn't even considered. Brad stepped closer to the screen, his face pale. That can't be right. She's been working on it for less than 20 minutes. Why don't you run it and see? Naomi suggested, her voice calm and professional. Christopher nodded to Brad, who reluctantly executed Naomi's code against the test cases. The results appeared almost instantly. All tests passed with execution time significantly faster than any of the solutions the programmers had developed. Impossible, another programmer whispered. We've been working on this all morning. Maybe, said Christopher, standing up and addressing the group, you've been overcomplicating it. Sometimes fresh perspective and solid fundamentals beat years of experience. Naomi saved her file and turned to face the assembled group. Her wet hair had dried into beautiful natural curls, and her green blouse complemented her rich skin tone perfectly. She no longer looked like someone to be pitted or mocked. She looked like exactly what she was, a brilliant programmer who had been overlooked for far too long. The solution uses OE log V, time complexity for the initial spanning tree construction, then amortizes the dynamic updates to near constant time using a specialized data structure, she explained calmly. It's based on a paper I read last year about real-time network optimization. Christopher was impressed not just by her technical skills, but by her grace under pressure. Despite being humiliated and challenged in front of a room full of strangers, she had responded with professionalism and competence. Brad, Christopher said, turning to the programmer who had started the confrontation, I believe you owe Ms. Johnson an apology. Brad's face went through several shades of red before he finally spoke. I'm sorry. We shouldn't have assumed. We shouldn't have treated you that way. One by one, the other programmers mumbled their apologies. Some seemed genuinely remorseful, while others appeared more concerned about their jobs than about making amends. Christopher waited until all 10 had apologized before addressing Naomi directly. Ms. Johnson, I think it's clear that Technova has been missing out on exceptional talent. Would you be interested in discussing a position with our development team? The offer hung in the air like a lifeline. Naomi had been dreaming of this moment for months, applying to companies and facing rejection after rejection. Now, finally, someone was offering her the chance she deserved. I would be very interested, she replied, her voice steady despite the emotions swirling inside her. But I should mention that I'm currently committed to my delivery job through the end of this week. I don't want to leave them short-handed. Christopher smiled at her consideration for her current employer, even after they had offered her so little. Of course, professional obligations should always be honored. Why don't we schedule a formal interview for Monday? The meantime, I'd like you to take this. He handed her a business card with his direct contact information. Call me this weekend. I'd like to discuss not just the job, but the kind of role that would really utilize your abilities. Naomi accepted the card with both hands as if it were made of precious metal. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. I can't tell you how much this opportunity means to me. Please call me Christopher. And Naomi, the pleasure is mine. It's not often we find talent like yours. As the crowd began to disperse, Christopher watched Naomi pack up her delivery bags. She moved with quiet dignity, unaffected by the sudden change in how people were treating her. The programmers who had mocked her earlier now watched with newfound respect, several of them looking deeply ashamed of their earlier behavior. Naomi, Christopher called as she headed toward the door. One more thing. That solution you just created? It's going to save our network optimization team months of work. You didn't just solve a practice problem, you solved a real business challenge we've been struggling with. Naomi paused in the doorway, a small smile crossing her face. Maybe that's what happens when you give people a real chance to show what they can do. With that, she disappeared into the hallway, leaving behind a room full of programmers who would never again judge someone based on their appearance or their job. And leaving behind a billionaire CEO who was already planning how to convince the most impressive programmer he'd met in years to join his company. As the elevator doors closed behind Naomi, she finally allowed herself to smile fully. After months of rejection and survival, someone had finally seen her potential. Someone had finally given her a chance. The real question now was what she would do with it. The weekend passed slowly for Naomi, who found herself staring at Christopher's business card every few hours. She had called him on Saturday evening, and they had arranged to meet Monday morning for what he called a conversation about possibilities rather than a traditional interview. Sunday night, she stood in front of her small apartment's bathroom mirror, practicing what she would say. Her grandmother, Elena, watched from the doorway with a knowing smile. "You're nervous," Elena observed, her voice warm despite her illness. "I just want to make a good impression," Naomi replied, adjusting her blue blazer for the 10th time. "This could change everything for us, Grandma." Elena shuffled closer and placed a gentle hand on Naomi's shoulder. "Baby, you've already impressed him. Now you just need to be yourself." Monday morning arrived crisp and clear. Naomi took the subway to Technova Tower, arriving 15 minutes early. This time she walked through the lobby with purpose, wearing a professional blue suit that she had purchased years ago for job interviews. The security guard directed her to the executive elevator, which required a special key card that Christopher had arranged for her. The executive floor was nothing like the development floor where she had delivered food. Here, everything was glass and steel, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering breathtaking views of the city. Christopher's assistant, a professional woman named Patricia, greeted her warmly. "Mr. Hayes is just finishing a call," Patricia said. "He's very excited to meet with you. Would you like some coffee while you wait?" "That would be wonderful, thank you," Naomi replied, grateful for the genuine warmth in Patricia's voice. It was such a contrast from the reception she usually received in corporate settings. Christopher's office door opened precisely at 9 o'clock. He emerged wearing a charcoal gray suit, looking every inch the successful CEO, but his smile was genuine and welcoming. "Naomi, thank you for coming. Please come in." His office was impressive but not ostentatious. The walls were lined with bookshelves containing technical manuals, business books, and what appeared to be a substantial collection of science fiction novels. A large desk dominated one corner, but Christopher led her to a comfortable seating area with 2 leather chairs and a low table. "I have to admit," Christopher began as they settled into their chairs, "I spent most of the weekend thinking about Friday's events. What you accomplished was remarkable, but what impressed me even more was how you handled yourself under pressure." Naomi felt some of her nervousness ease. "Thank you. I've had plenty of practice dealing with difficult situations." "Tell me about your path to computer science," Christopher requested. "What drew you to programming?" Naomi's eyes lit up as she began to share her story. "I first encountered programming in high school. We had one computer in the library and I used to stay after school to work on it. There was something magical about being able to create something from nothing, about solving problems with logic and creativity." Christopher listened intently as she continued. "My grandmother worked 2 jobs to help me pay for college. She always said education was the one thing no one could take away from you. I threw myself into my studies, graduated summa cum laude, and thought the world was waiting for me. But it wasn't that simple," Christopher observed. "No, it wasn't." Naomi's voice grew quieter. "The tech industry talks a lot about diversity and inclusion, but the reality is often different. When you're a black woman from a working-class background, you have to work twice as hard to get half the recognition." Christopher nodded thoughtfully. "I've seen that pattern too often. Brilliant people overlooked because they don't fit someone's narrow idea of what a programmer should look like." "After months of rejections, I started doubting myself," Naomi admitted. "Maybe I wasn't as good as I thought. Maybe I was being unrealistic about my abilities." "But you never stopped learning," Christopher pointed out. "No, I couldn't. Programming isn't just what I do, it's who I am. Even when I was delivering food, I was thinking about algorithms, about better ways to solve problems, about applications I wanted to build." Christopher leaned forward slightly. "What kind of applications?" Naomi's passion became evident as she spoke. "Accessibility software for people with disabilities, educational tools for underprivileged kids, healthcare applications that could help people in underserved communities. Technology should be about solving real problems for real people, not just creating the next addictive social media platform." "That's exactly the kind of thinking we need here," Christopher said. "Technova has been successful, but I sometimes worry we've lost sight of technology's potential to create positive change." They spent the next hour discussing technical challenges, industry trends, and Naomi's ideas for potential projects. Christopher was struck by her depth of knowledge and her unique perspective on how technology could be used for social good. "Naomi, I want to make you an offer," Christopher said finally. "But first, I need you to understand that this isn't charity or some diversity initiative. This is about recognizing exceptional talent that we need." Naomi straightened in her chair, preparing herself for whatever came next. "I'd like to offer you a position as senior software engineer with a starting salary of $120,000 per year, full benefits and stock options. More importantly, I want you to lead a new division focused on social impact applications." The number hit Naomi like a physical force. She had been making barely $20,000 a year with delivery work, struggling to pay rent and afford her grandmother's medications. That's incredibly generous," she managed to say. "It's market rate for someone with your abilities," Christopher corrected. "Actually, it's probably below what you're worth, but it's where we can start. As you prove yourself, which I'm confident you will, there will be opportunities for advancement." Naomi felt tears threatening to form in her eyes. "I accept. Gratefully. This means more to me than you can imagine." Christopher smiled, genuinely pleased by her reaction. "When can you start?" "I need to give proper notice to the delivery company," Naomi said. 2 weeks would be professional." "Of course. Take the time you need." Christopher stood and extended his hand. "Welcome to Technova, Naomi. I have a feeling you're going to change this place for the better." As they shook hands, Naomi felt a spark of something beyond professional excitement. Christopher's hand was warm and strong, and when their eyes met, she felt a connection that went beyond employer and employee. "Thank you for seeing my potential when no one else would," she said softly. "Thank you for not giving up on your dreams," Christopher replied. "The tech industry needs people like you." As Naomi left Technova Tower that morning, she walked with a lightness she hadn't felt in months. For the first time in a long time, her future looked bright. She couldn't wait to tell her grandmother that everything was finally going to be okay. But she also couldn't stop thinking about the way Christopher had looked at her when they shook hands, and the way her heart had skipped when he smiled. This new job was going to be more complicated than she had anticipated, in ways she was only beginning to understand. 2 weeks later, Naomi walked through the doors of Technova Corporation as an employee for the first time. She wore a deep maroon dress that highlighted her professional confidence, and carried a leather briefcase that her grandmother had given her as a congratulations gift. Patricia greeted her warmly in the lobby. "Welcome to your first day, Ms. Johnson. Mr. Hayes asked me to give you the full orientation tour before you settle into your office." "I have an office?" Naomi asked, surprised. "Of course. All senior engineers do. Yours is on the 22nd floor, near the executive level." As they rode the elevator up, Patricia explained the company structure, benefits, and culture. "Mr. Hayes has been personally involved in planning your integration into the team. He's very invested in your success here." The 22nd floor was impressive, with modern workspaces and cutting-edge technology everywhere. Patricia led her to a corner office with large windows overlooking the city. "This is yours," Patricia announced, opening the door to reveal a spacious office with a high-end computer setup, comfortable furniture, and a small conference table. "Mr. Hayes will be by shortly to discuss your first projects." Naomi set down her briefcase and looked around in amazement. 6 months ago, she had been struggling to pay rent. Now she had an office with a view and more computing power than she had ever dreamed of having access to. A knock on her open door interrupted her thoughts. Christopher stood in the doorway wearing a navy blue suit and carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Good morning, Naomi. I brought you coffee. I remember you mentioning you prefer it black." "Thank you," she said, accepting the cup gratefully. "This office is incredible. You'll need the space for the projects I have in mind," Christopher said, settling into one of the chairs across from her desk. "I've been thinking about our conversation regarding social impact applications." He pulled out a tablet and showed her several project proposals. Healthcare accessibility software for rural communities. Educational platforms for underprivileged schools. Financial literacy tools for low-income families. "I want you to choose which one interests you most, and then build a team to make it happen." Naomi studied the proposals, her excitement growing. "These are exactly the kinds of projects I've dreamed of working on." "But Christopher, these represent millions of dollars in development costs. And potentially millions of lives improved," Christopher replied. "Technova is profitable enough that we can afford to invest in projects that matter, not just projects that generate revenue." As they discussed the technical requirements and potential impact of each project, Naomi found herself impressed by Christopher's genuine commitment to using technology for good. He wasn't just paying lip service to social responsibility, he was willing to dedicate significant resources to making positive change. I'd like to start with the Healthcare Accessibility Project, Naomi decided. There are so many people who can't access basic medical information or telehealth services because of technical barriers. Excellent choice, Christopher agreed. I'll set up meetings with our health tech consultants and potential partner organizations. You'll have complete creative control over the technical approach. As Christopher prepared to leave, he paused at the door. Naomi, I hope you don't mind me asking, but you mentioned taking care of your grandmother. How is she doing? Naomi's expression grew more serious. She has diabetes and heart problems. The medications are expensive even with insurance. That's part of why this job means so much to me. I can finally afford to get her the care she needs. I'm sorry she's been struggling, Christopher said gently. If there's anything Technova's healthcare benefits can do to help, please let Patricia know. We have excellent coverage and some additional support programs. Thank you, Naomi replied, touched by his concern. You've already done more for us than you know. After Christopher left, Naomi spent her morning reviewing technical documentation and getting familiar with Technova's development tools. Around noon, Jennifer, one of the programmers from the previous week's incident, knocked on her door. Hi Naomi. I wanted to apologize again for Friday. What my colleagues did was inexcusable. Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate that. I also wanted to say that your solution to the algorithm challenge was brilliant. I've been thinking about your approach all weekend. Would you be open to grabbing lunch? I'd love to hear more about your background. Naomi agreed and they headed to the company cafeteria together. Over salads and sandwiches, Jennifer shared her own experiences as one of the few women in Technova's development department. It's not easy being different here, Jennifer admitted. Most of the guys are decent, but the culture can be challenging. Having another woman around, especially one with your skills, will make things better for both of us. I hope so, Naomi replied. I just want to do good work and prove that Christopher's faith in me was justified. Oh, it was definitely justified, Jennifer said with a knowing smile. In fact, I think Christopher is more interested in you than just your programming abilities. Naomi nearly choked on her sandwich. What do you mean? I've worked here for 3 years and I've never seen him personally involved in hiring someone the way he was with you. He spent hours last week reviewing your educational background and researching your college projects. That's not normal CEO behavior. Naomi felt her cheeks warm. He's just being thorough. This is a big opportunity for the company. Jennifer laughed. Naomi, the man hand-delivered coffee to your office this morning. When's the last time you think Christopher Hayes personally brought coffee to an employee? Before Naomi could respond, her phone buzzed with a text message from Christopher. How's your first day going? Let me know if you need anything. Jennifer noticed her expression change as she read the message. See what I mean? That afternoon, Christopher stopped by Naomi's office again, this time with a stack of research papers about healthcare accessibility. I thought these might be useful for your project planning, he said, setting them on her desk. You didn't have to go through all this trouble, Naomi said, touched by the thoughtfulness. It wasn't trouble. I find your passion for this work inspiring. It's refreshing to work with someone who cares about impact as much as innovation. As he spoke, Naomi noticed the way his eyes lit up when he talked about meaningful technology. She also noticed how comfortable she felt talking with him, despite their difference in position and background. Christopher, can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you really offer me this job? Was it just about my technical skills? Christopher was quiet for a moment, considering his answer carefully. Honestly, your technical abilities were only part of it. Yes, you're an exceptional programmer. But more than that, you have perspective and values that this company needs. You've experienced challenges that give you insight into problems most of us never think about. He paused, then continued more quietly. And if I'm being completely honest, there was something about your grace under pressure, your determination to keep learning despite setbacks, that impressed me on a personal level. The admission hung in the air between them, creating a moment of connection that went beyond professional relationship. Thank you for being honest, Naomi said softly. This opportunity means everything to me. I'm glad you're here, Naomi. I think we're going to do great things together. As Christopher left her office for the second time that day, Naomi realized that Jennifer might have been right. There was definitely something developing between her and Christopher that went beyond employer and employee. The question was whether acting on those feelings would be wise, given their professional relationship and the dramatic differences in their backgrounds. But as she looked out her office window at the city below, Naomi couldn't help but smile. For the first time in months, her life was full of possibilities she had never dared to imagine. 3 weeks into her new position, Naomi had already made significant progress on the healthcare accessibility project. She had assembled a small team of developers and was working directly with rural healthcare providers to understand their technology challenges. On a Thursday morning, she was deep in code when Christopher appeared in her doorway, looking unusually excited. "Naomi, do you have a minute? I have some news." She saved her work and gestured for him to sit down. "What's going on?" "I just got off a call with the board of directors," Christopher said, settling into the chair across from her desk. "They've been reviewing the preliminary work on your healthcare project." Naomi felt her stomach tighten. "Is there a problem?" "Quite the opposite," Christopher smiled. "They're so impressed with your approach and progress that they've approved a $10 million budget to fully develop and deploy the platform. They want to fast-track it for nationwide implementation." The magnitude of the news took a moment to sink in. $10 million? Your work convinced them that this could revolutionize healthcare access for underserved communities. They see both the social impact and the potential market opportunity. Naomi stood up and walked to her window, trying to process what she was hearing. 3 months ago, she had been delivering food for tips. Now she was leading a multi-million-dollar initiative that could help thousands of people. "There's more," Christopher continued. "The board wants to promote you to Director of Social Impact Technology. It comes with a substantial salary increase and a seat in senior management meetings." Naomi turned back to face him. "Christopher, this is incredible, but it feels like too much too fast. I've only been here 3 weeks. "Naomi, in 3 weeks you've accomplished what most teams take months to achieve. You've identified real user needs, designed elegant technical solutions, and built partnerships with healthcare providers. The board sees your potential as clearly as I do." She sat back down, still processing the magnitude of the opportunity. "What would my new responsibilities include?" "You'd oversee all of Technova's social impact initiatives. Healthcare, education, financial inclusion, accessibility technology. You'd have budget authority and the ability to hire your own teams. Essentially, you'd be building a new division of the company from the ground up." The offer was beyond anything Naomi had imagined possible. It was the kind of position that would give her the resources and authority to make real change in the world. "I accept," she said without hesitation. "And thank you for believing in me." Christopher's smile was genuine and warm. "The belief is mutual. I learn something new from you every time we work together." As they shook hands to seal the agreement, Naomi felt the same spark she had experienced during their first meeting. Christopher's hand lingered in hers for just a moment longer than professional courtesy required. "We should celebrate," Christopher said. "Would you be interested in dinner tomorrow night? I know a quiet restaurant where we can discuss your new role in detail." The invitation caught Naomi off guard. Was this a business dinner or something more personal? The line between their professional and personal relationship had been blurring for weeks. "I'd like that," she replied, deciding to accept gracefully rather than overthink the invitation. "Perfect. I'll pick you up at 7. That evening, Naomi called her grandmother to share the news about her promotion. "Director of Social Impact Technology," Elena repeated slowly. "My baby is a director at one of the biggest companies in the country." "It doesn't feel real yet," Naomi admitted. 6 months ago I was worried about paying rent. Now I'm responsible for projects that could help millions of people." "You deserve every bit of this success," Elena said firmly. "And that young man who hired you sounds like he has good sense." "Grandma, what do you mean?" "A man doesn't promote someone that quickly unless he sees something special in them. And I don't just mean their work abilities." Naomi felt her cheeks warm. "It's not like that. We have a professional relationship." Elena's laugh was knowing. "Baby, I may be old, but I'm not blind. That man is interested in more than your programming skills." Friday evening arrived quickly. Naomi chose an elegant green dress that was professional but flattering, and spent extra time on her hair and makeup. When Christopher arrived to pick her up, he was wearing a black suit instead of his usual business attire, and he looked more handsome than she had realized. The restaurant he had chosen was intimate and upscale, with soft lighting and private booths. It definitely felt more like a date than a business meeting. "This place is beautiful," Naomi said as they were seated. "I thought you'd like it. They have excellent food and enough privacy for us to talk without interruption." As they ordered dinner and wine, their conversation flowed naturally from work topics to personal interests. Naomi learned that Christopher had started Technova in his garage 7 years earlier, and that he still felt driven to prove that technology companies could be profitable while making positive social impact. Most people in my position focus entirely on maximizing shareholder value, Christopher admitted. But I've always believed that businesses have a responsibility to make the world better, not just richer. That's exactly why I love working on these projects, Naomi replied. Technology is just a tool. What matters is how we use it. As the evening progressed, Naomi found herself increasingly attracted to Christopher's intelligence, values, and genuine interest in her thoughts and experiences. He asked thoughtful questions about her background and listened intently to her answers. Naomi, can I ask you something personal? Christopher said as they shared dessert. Of course. How do you see yourself 5 years from now? What do you want your life to look like? The question was clearly about more than career planning. Naomi considered her answer carefully. I want to be making a real difference in people's lives through technology. I want my grandmother to be healthy and comfortable. And I want to be with people who value the same things I do. People like who? Christopher asked gently. People who care about justice and kindness. People who use their advantages to help others rather than just accumulating more advantages. People who see potential in others even when it's not obvious. Christopher reached across the table and gently touched her hand. People like you. The touch sent electricity through Naomi's entire body. She realized that what had been building between them for weeks was undeniable mutual attraction. Christopher, she said softly, I need to ask if this dinner is about business or something else. I think you know the answer to that, he replied, his thumb tracing across her knuckles. I've been trying to maintain professional boundaries, but I can't pretend anymore that my feelings for you are purely professional. Naomi felt her heart racing. I feel the same way. But this could complicate things at work. Only if we let it, Christopher said. We're both adults. We can handle our personal relationship professionally. As they left the restaurant, Christopher walked her to his car with his hand gently touching the small of her back. The gesture was protective and intimate, and Naomi realized she had never felt so cared for. Naomi, Christopher said as they reached her apartment building, I don't want to pressure you, but I'd like to see where this leads. You're the most remarkable woman I've ever met. Naomi looked into his eyes and saw genuine affection and respect. I'd like that too. But we should take things slowly. Of course, Christopher agreed immediately. We have all the time in the world. As Naomi went to sleep that night, she couldn't stop smiling. Her career was soaring beyond her wildest dreams, and she was developing feelings for a man who valued her mind as much as her heart. For the first time in her life, everything seemed to be falling into place perfectly. But she had no idea that the real challenges were just beginning. Monday morning brought Naomi's first day as Director of Social Impact Technology. She arrived at Technova to find that her office had been upgraded to a larger space on the 23rd floor, complete with a conference room for her team meetings. Patricia greeted her with a stack of congratulations messages from colleagues and a detailed schedule for her first week in the new role. Mr. Hayes wants to see you at 9 for a strategic planning meeting, Patricia informed her. And you have lunch scheduled with the board's technology committee at noon. As Naomi settled into her new office, she felt a mix of excitement and responsibility. The healthcare accessibility project was just the beginning. She now had the authority to launch multiple initiatives that could impact thousands of lives. Christopher arrived promptly at 9, carrying a briefcase and wearing the navy blue suit that Naomi was beginning to recognize as his favorite. Good morning, Director Johnson, he said with a formal tone that was belied by his warm smile. Good morning, Mr. Hayes, she replied, playing along with the professional formality. They spent the morning reviewing potential projects and discussing budget allocations. Christopher was impressed by Naomi's detailed research and strategic thinking. You've put together comprehensive plans for educational technology, financial inclusion software, and accessibility tools, he observed, reviewing her proposals. How do you want to prioritize these initiatives? I think we should start with healthcare and education simultaneously, Naomi explained. They have the most immediate impact potential, and success in those areas will build credibility for the other projects. Christopher nodded approvingly. Agreed. What kind of team will you need? 5 developers, 2 user experience designers, and a project manager to start. I also want to hire a community outreach coordinator who can work directly with the organizations we're trying to help. Done, Christopher said without hesitation. Draft the job descriptions and Patricia will post them this week. As their meeting concluded, Christopher stood to leave but paused at the door. Naomi, I hope the change in our professional relationship won't affect our personal connection. I hope not either, she replied softly. But we should probably be more careful about boundaries at work. Absolutely. No one should be able to question your qualifications or suggest that your promotion was based on anything other than merit. That afternoon, Naomi's lunch with the board's technology committee went extremely well. The 5 senior executives were impressed by her vision and her detailed understanding of both technical requirements and social needs. Ms. Johnson, said board member Margaret Chin, your approach to social impact technology is exactly what this company needs. You're thinking like an entrepreneur and a social worker simultaneously. Thank you, Naomi replied. I believe the best technology solutions come from understanding real human problems, not just technical challenges. Over the following weeks, Naomi threw herself into building her new division. She hired an exceptional team of developers and designers, all of whom were excited about using their skills for social good. The healthcare accessibility platform began taking shape rapidly, with features designed specifically for users with limited technical experience or slow internet connections. Christopher made a point of checking in with her regularly, but always in professional settings with other team members present. Their personal relationship continued to develop through occasional dinners and weekend coffee meetings, but they were careful to keep it separate from work. One evening, as Naomi was working late on user interface designs, Christopher knocked on her office door. You know, directors are supposed to delegate work, not do it all themselves, he said, settling into a chair across from her desk. I like being hands-on with the technical details, Naomi replied. Besides, this interface needs to be perfect. People's health decisions will depend on how easy it is to use. Christopher watched her work for a few minutes, admiring her dedication and attention to detail. Naomi, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you ever worry that you're moving too fast? 6 months ago you were delivering food, and now you're running a multi-million-dollar division. Naomi looked up from her computer screen. Every day. Sometimes I feel like I'm pretending to be someone I'm not. But then I remember that I worked hard for these skills, and I deserve this opportunity. You absolutely do, Christopher agreed. I just want to make sure you're not burning yourself out trying to prove something. I'm not trying to prove anything to anyone else, Naomi said thoughtfully. But I am trying to prove to myself that I can handle this responsibility. Christopher stood and moved closer to her desk. For what it's worth, you've already proven that to me. Watching you build this division has been incredible. You're a natural leader. The compliment meant more to Naomi than any salary increase. Having Christopher's respect and confidence was becoming increasingly important to her, both professionally and personally. Thank you, she said softly. That means a lot, especially coming from you. Naomi, I know we're trying to keep things professional at work, but I have to say this. I'm falling for you. Not just as a colleague or even as a friend. I'm developing real feelings for you. The admission hung in the air between them. Naomi felt her heart race as she processed what he had said. I feel the same way, she admitted. But Christopher, we have to be careful. If people think I got this position because of a personal relationship with you, it could undermine everything I'm trying to build here. I understand, Christopher replied. But I also think we're mature enough to handle both a professional and personal relationship. Other people have done it successfully. Naomi stood and walked to her window, looking out at the city lights below. What if it doesn't work out between us personally? What happens to my career then? Christopher joined her at the window. Naomi, I can't guarantee that any relationship will work out perfectly. But I can promise you that your position here is based entirely on your abilities and contributions. Whatever happens between us personally, your professional success is secure. She turned to face him, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. Are you willing to take things slowly? To let our personal relationship develop naturally without rushing into anything? Absolutely, Christopher agreed. We have all the time in the world to figure this out. As they stood together looking out at the city, Naomi realized that her life had become more complex and wonderful than she had ever imagined possible. She had meaningful work, financial security, and the beginning of what might be a beautiful relationship with a man who valued her mind and heart equally. The girl who had been mocked by programmers just months earlier was now directing projects that could help millions of people. And the man who had defended her that day was becoming someone she could genuinely care about. But as she was beginning to learn, success and happiness often bring their own challenges. The higher you climb, the farther there is to fall. 2 months into her role as Director of Social Impact Technology, Naomi had successfully launched the healthcare accessibility platform in 3 rural communities. The early results were promising. Patients were able to access medical information more easily, schedule telemedicine appointments, and manage their prescriptions through user-friendly interfaces designed specifically for people with limited technology experience. Christopher had been supportive but professional during work hours, and their personal relationship had been developing through weekend dinners and long conversations about everything from technology philosophy to childhood memories. On a Saturday evening, Christopher picked Naomi up for what had become their weekly dinner date. Instead of their usual restaurant, he drove to a different part of the city. "Where are we going?" Naomi asked as they pulled up to a modern building with large windows and industrial architecture. "My place," Christopher replied. "I thought it was time you saw how I live. Plus, I've been practicing my cooking skills." Naomi felt a flutter of nervousness mixed with excitement. Visiting Christopher's home felt like a significant step in their relationship. His apartment was on the top floor of a converted warehouse, with soaring ceilings, exposed brick walls and floor-to-ceiling windows that offered panoramic views of the city. The space was minimally furnished but comfortable, with high-end technology seamlessly integrated into the design. "This is incredible," Naomi said, walking to the windows to admire the view. "I like having space to think," Christopher explained. "And the privacy is nice when you want to escape from being a public figure." He had prepared a simple but elegant dinner: grilled salmon, roasted vegetables, and a salad with homemade vinaigrette. They ate at a small table near the windows, watching the sun set over the city skyline. "You're full of surprises," Naomi said, impressed by both the meal and the intimate setting. "CEO, philanthropist, and chef." "I learned to cook in college when I couldn't afford to eat out," Christopher replied. "It stuck with me even after I could hire personal chefs." After dinner, they moved to his living room, where a comfortable sofa faced the windows. Christopher opened a bottle of wine, and they settled in to continue their conversation. "Naomi, I've been thinking about something," Christopher said as he poured the wine. "What's that?" "How you've changed Technova's culture in just a few months. People are more engaged, more excited about the work they're doing. You've reminded everyone why we got into technology in the first place." Naomi curled her legs under her on the sofa, feeling relaxed and content. "I think people want to do meaningful work. They just need permission and resources to pursue projects they care about." "It's more than that," Christopher insisted. "You lead by example. You show genuine care for your team members and for the people our products will help. That's not something you can teach." The compliment made Naomi feel warm inside, but she also felt the weight of responsibility. "Sometimes I worry that I'm not qualified for this level of leadership. I'm making decisions that affect millions of dollars and thousands of lives." Christopher set down his wine glass and turned to face her directly. "Naomi, let me tell you something about qualifications. I know CEOs with Harvard MBAs and decades of experience who couldn't do what you've accomplished in 3 months. Leadership isn't about credentials, it's about vision, integrity, and the ability to inspire others." "You really believe that?" "I've seen you work. I've watched you interact with your team, with community partners, with board members. You have natural leadership abilities that can't be learned from textbooks." As they talked, Naomi found herself increasingly aware of Christopher's physical presence. He was sitting closer to her on the sofa, and she could smell his cologne and see the way his eyes reflected the city lights from the windows. "Christopher," she said softly, "what are we doing here?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, what is this relationship becoming? Are we dating? Are we building towards something serious? I need to understand what you're thinking." Christopher considered his answer carefully. "Honestly, I'm trying not to overthink it. I enjoy spending time with you. I respect you more than anyone I've ever worked with. I'm attracted to you in ways that go beyond physical. I'd like to see where this leads without putting pressure on either of us." "That's exactly how I feel," Naomi replied. "But I also worry about the complications. What happens if our relationship becomes public? What happens if it affects how people see my work?" "Then we'll deal with those challenges together," Christopher said, reaching over to take her hand. "Naomi, I can't promise that dating me won't create some difficulties. But I can promise that I'll always support your career and protect your reputation." The touch of his hand sent familiar sparks through Naomi's body. She realized that her feelings for Christopher had grown much deeper than professional admiration or casual attraction. "I care about you," she said quietly. "More than I probably should, given our circumstances." "I care about you too," Christopher replied, moving closer to her on the sofa. "In fact, I think I'm falling in love with you." The admission took Naomi's breath away. She looked into his eyes and saw sincerity, vulnerability, and genuine affection. "I think I'm falling in love with you too," she whispered. Christopher leaned forward and kissed her gently. The kiss was tender and careful, full of promise rather than urgency. When they broke apart, Naomi felt as if the world had shifted slightly on its axis. "We should probably talk about how to handle this at work," she said practically, even as her heart was racing. "We'll be discreet," Christopher agreed. "Our personal relationship stays private until we decide we're ready to make it public. And we continue to maintain professional boundaries during work hours. And if people ask about us? We'll handle those questions when they come up. For now, let's just focus on getting to know each other better." They spent the rest of the evening talking about their hopes for the future, their fears about their growing relationship, and their excitement about the projects they were building together at Technova. As Christopher drove Naomi home that night, she felt a sense of completion she had never experienced before. Her career was flourishing, her financial worries were behind her, and she was developing a relationship with a man who valued her intelligence as much as her heart. "Thank you for dinner," she said as they reached her apartment building. "Thank you for being patient with me while I figure out how to balance being your colleague and being someone who cares about you personally," Christopher replied. "We'll figure it out together," Naomi assured him. As she went to sleep that night, Naomi realized that she was truly happy for the first time in years. Everything in her life seemed to be moving in the right direction. She had no way of knowing that within weeks, she would face challenges that would test both her professional abilities and her personal relationships in ways she had never imagined. The healthcare accessibility platform launch was scheduled for the following Monday, marking 6 months since Naomi had joined Technova. The project had grown beyond anyone's initial expectations, with healthcare providers in 15 rural communities signed up to participate in the pilot program. Naomi spent the weekend doing final system tests and preparing for media interviews about the launch. Christopher had arranged for tech journalists and healthcare advocates to attend the announcement, positioning Technova as an industry leader in social impact technology. Sunday evening, as Naomi worked late in her office preparing presentation materials, Christopher appeared in her doorway with takeout containers from her favorite restaurant. "You missed dinner again," he said, setting the food on her conference table. "I thought you might be hungry." "You're incredibly thoughtful," Naomi replied, grateful for both the food and his presence. "I'm just nervous about tomorrow. This launch represents everything I've been working toward." Christopher sat down across from her as she opened the containers. "The system is ready. Your team is prepared. The pilot communities are excited. What else could you possibly need to worry about? What if it fails? What if people can't figure out how to use it? What if the whole thing crashes on the first day?" Naomi voiced the fears that had been keeping her awake at night. "Then we'll fix whatever problems arise and keep improving," Christopher said calmly. "Naomi, you've built something remarkable. Even if there are glitches initially, the foundation is solid." As they shared the meal, Christopher watched Naomi's nervous energy gradually ease. He had learned to recognize her different moods and what she needed to feel supported. "Can I tell you something?" Christopher asked as they finished eating. "Always. Watching you lead this project has been one of the most impressive things I've ever witnessed in business. You've balanced technical excellence with genuine empathy for users. You've managed a team with wisdom and kindness. You've turned an abstract idea into something that will actually help people." Naomi felt tears forming in her eyes. "Christopher, that means everything to me. Your support has been essential to your success," he interrupted gently. "Naomi, I've provided resources and removed obstacles. But everything you've accomplished has been because of your own abilities and dedication. I couldn't have done this without you believing in me. And I couldn't have imagined this level of success without your vision and leadership." They looked at each other across the conference table, both recognizing that their professional partnership had become inseparable from their personal relationship. "Christopher," Naomi said softly, "I love you." The words hung in the air between them, more significant than any contract or business agreement they had ever signed. "I love you too, Naomi," Christopher replied without hesitation. "I love your intelligence, your compassion, your determination. I love the way you see possibilities where others see problems. I love who you are and who you inspire me to be." Christopher stood and walked around the table to where Naomi was sitting. She stood to meet him and he took her hands in his. "I know this complicates everything," Naomi said, looking into his eyes. "It also makes everything more meaningful," Christopher replied. "Naomi, I don't just want to be your colleague or your CEO. I want to be your partner in every sense of the word." "What does that mean for us practically?" "It means we stop pretending that our personal relationship is separate from our professional one. It means we acknowledge that we work better together than either of us works alone. It means we start planning a future that includes both our careers and our relationship. Christopher cupped Naomi's face gently in his hands. It means I want to spend my life with you, building technologies that matter and building a relationship that lasts. Are you saying what I think you're saying? Naomi whispered. I'm saying that I want to marry you, Naomi Johnson. Not now and not next week, but when you're ready for that level of commitment. I'm saying that I see a future where we're partners in business and in life. Naomi felt her heart soar. 6 months ago, she had been struggling to pay rent and worrying about her grandmother's medical bills. Now the man she loved was talking about marriage and a shared future. Christopher, yes. To all of it. Yes to being partners, yes to building a future together, yes to marriage when we're both ready. He kissed her then, deeply and passionately, with all the emotion they had been carefully controlling for months. When they broke apart, both were smiling and slightly breathless. We should probably talk about how to handle this publicly, Naomi said practically. After tomorrow's launch, Christopher agreed. Let's get through the media coverage and the initial user feedback. Then we can figure out how to share our personal news. Will it be a problem for the company? The CEO dating a director? It might raise some eyebrows initially, Christopher admitted. But your work speaks for itself. No one can argue that your success is based on anything other than merit. As they gathered Naomi's materials to leave the office, Christopher took her hand and squeezed it gently. Tomorrow is going to be amazing, he assured her. The platform you've built will help thousands of people access healthcare more easily. And after tomorrow we can start planning our future together. I can't wait, Naomi replied, feeling a mixture of excitement and contentment she had never experienced before. As they left Technova Tower that night, walking hand in hand toward Christopher's car, Naomi reflected on how dramatically her life had changed. She had found meaningful work, financial security, and love with a man who supported her ambitions and shared her values. The launch event the next day exceeded all expectations. Healthcare providers praised the platform's ease of use, patients shared testimonials about improved access to medical information, and tech journalists highlighted Technova's innovative approach to social impact technology. During the press conference, Naomi fielded questions with confidence and expertise, demonstrating both her technical knowledge and her deep understanding of healthcare challenges. Christopher watched from the audience, beaming with pride at her poise and eloquence. As the event concluded, Christopher joined Naomi on stage for the final interviews. Ms. Johnson, asked a journalist from TechCrunch, what's next for Technova's social impact division? We're expanding into educational technology and financial inclusion software, Naomi replied. The goal is to use technology to break down barriers that prevent people from accessing essential services. And Mr. Hayes, how has this initiative affected Technova's overall business strategy? Having Naomi lead our social impact efforts has reminded us that the most successful technologies solve real human problems, Christopher answered. We're not just building software, we're building tools that improve lives. As the interviews wrapped up and the audience dispersed, Christopher and Naomi found themselves alone on the stage. We did it, Naomi said, still processing the magnitude of what they had accomplished. You did it, Christopher corrected. This was your vision and your leadership. Our vision, Naomi insisted. Christopher, I couldn't have done any of this without your support and partnership. As they looked out at the empty auditorium where they had just announced a project that would help thousands of people, both realized that they had built something much more significant than a software platform. They had built a professional partnership and personal relationship that could change both their lives and the lives of countless others. The future was bright with possibilities neither of them had dared to imagine just months earlier. 3 weeks after the successful healthcare platform launch, Naomi was in her office reviewing expansion proposals when Patricia knocked on her door with an urgent expression. Ms. Johnson, you have visitors. 2 executives from MedTech Solutions are here to see you. They don't have an appointment, but they say it's regarding a significant opportunity. Naomi frowned. MedTech Solutions was one of Technova's biggest competitors, known for aggressive business practices and attempts to poach top talent from other companies. Send them in, Naomi decided. But ask them to keep the meeting brief. 2 impeccably dressed executives entered her office. A middle-aged man in an expensive suit and a woman with sharp features and calculating eyes. Ms. Johnson, I'm Robert Sterling, CEO of MedTech Solutions, and this is my Chief Technology Officer, Victoria Chen, the man announced. Thank you for seeing us without an appointment. Naomi gestured for them to sit but remained standing herself, a subtle power move she had learned from watching Christopher in difficult negotiations. What can I do for you? She asked directly. We'll get straight to the point, Sterling said. We've been following your work at Technova with great interest. Your healthcare accessibility platform is exactly the kind of innovation our company needs to lead the social impact technology sector. I'm glad you appreciate the work, Naomi replied carefully. But I'm not sure why that brings you to my office. Victoria Chin leaned forward. We want to offer you a position as Chief Innovation Officer at MedTech Solutions. You would have complete authority over all technology development, a starting salary of $300,000, and equity options worth potentially millions. The offer was staggering, far beyond anything Naomi had imagined possible when she was delivering food just months earlier. That's a generous offer, Naomi said neutrally. But I'm very happy with my current position. Ms. Johnson, Sterling continued, we know you have a special relationship with Christopher Hayes. But you should consider whether staying at Technova is really in your best career interests. The comment felt like a veiled threat, and Naomi's demeanor shifted to full alert. What exactly do you mean by that? We mean that your rapid promotion might raise questions about your professional qualifications, Chin said with a cold smile. At MedTech Solutions, your advancement would be based purely on merit, without any potential conflicts of interest. Naomi realized they were trying to use her relationship with Christopher as leverage, suggesting that her success at Technova was somehow illegitimate. I think this meeting is over, Naomi said firmly. Thank you for your interest, but I'm not looking for other opportunities. Think about it carefully, Sterling said as they stood to leave. This offer won't be available indefinitely. And sometimes staying loyal to the wrong people can limit your potential. After they left, Naomi sat in her office feeling unsettled. The offer itself was tempting, but their implications about her relationship with Christopher were infuriating. More concerning was the suggestion that other people might question her qualifications because of their personal relationship. That evening, Naomi met Christopher for dinner at their favorite restaurant. She waited until they had ordered before bringing up the MedTech visit. They offered you what? Christopher asked, clearly surprised by the magnitude of the offer. $300,000 plus equity. But Christopher, the way they talked about our relationship made me uncomfortable. They implied that people might question whether my success here is based on merit. Christopher's expression grew serious. Naomi, first of all, your success is entirely based on merit. Second, what they're really trying to do is destabilize Technova by stealing our best talent. But what if they're right about people questioning our relationship? Then those people don't understand what you've accomplished, Christopher said firmly. Naomi, you've built a division from scratch, launched a platform that's already helping thousands of people, and earned the respect of everyone you work with. No one who knows your work would question your qualifications. Naomi appreciated his confidence, but she couldn't shake her concerns. Christopher, what if accepting that offer would be better for my career? What if staying here limits my growth because people will always wonder about our personal relationship? Christopher was quiet for a long moment, considering her words carefully. Naomi, I want what's best for you, even if that means losing you professionally. If you think the MedTech opportunity is better for your career, you should take it. You really mean that? I love you too much to hold you back, Christopher replied. But I also hope you'll consider what you're building at Technova. Not just the technology but the culture and the impact. You're changing how people think about social responsibility in business. As they discussed the offer over dinner, Naomi realized that her concerns weren't really about career advancement or money. They were about legitimacy and respect. I need to know that my accomplishments are my own, she said finally. They are, Christopher assured her. But Naomi, if you're worried about public perception, maybe it's time we stop hiding our relationship. What do you mean? I mean we go public with our personal relationship on our terms, before someone else tries to use it against us. We acknowledge that we're together and that our professional partnership makes both of us better at what we do. The suggestion was both terrifying and liberating. Naomi had been worried about people questioning her qualifications, but maybe the solution was transparency rather than secrecy. How would we do that? Carefully and professionally, Christopher replied. We could start by telling our teams, then the board, then the media if necessary. We emphasize that our relationship developed after you had already proven yourself professionally. Naomi considered the idea. And if MedTech or other competitors try to use our relationship against us? Then we'll deal with those challenges together, Christopher said, reaching across the table to take her hand. Naomi, I'd rather face difficulties with you than avoid them alone. That weekend, Naomi called her grandmother to discuss the MedTech offer and her concerns about her relationship with Christopher. Baby, Elena said after listening to the whole story, It sounds like you're trying to solve problems that don't really exist. What do you mean? You're worried about what people might think, but you haven't asked yourself what you actually want. Do you want to leave Technova? Naomi considered the question honestly. No, I don't. I love the work I'm doing, I love my team, and I believe in what we're building. And do you love Christopher? Yes, completely. Then stop letting other people's potential opinions control your decisions, Elena advised. You've earned everything you have through hard work and talent. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Monday morning, Naomi called Sterling to decline the medtech offer. I appreciate the opportunity, she said professionally, but I'm committed to my current role and the projects I'm building at Technova. You're making a mistake, Sterling warned. Your reputation will always be tied to questions about your relationship with Hayes. My reputation will be tied to the work I do and the impact I make, Naomi replied firmly. Thank you for your interest, but this conversation is over. After ending the call, Naomi walked down the hall to Christopher's office. I turned down the medtech offer, she announced. Christopher looked up from his computer with relief and joy. I'm glad, but I want to make sure you're making the decision for the right reasons. I'm making it because I love what I do here, I love working with you, and I'm not going to let other people's assumptions control my life. Christopher stood and moved around his desk to embrace her. I love you for your courage as much as everything else. I love you too, Naomi replied. And I think you're right about going public with our relationship. Let's do it on our terms. As they held each other in Christopher's office, both realized that they had passed an important test. Their relationship was strong enough to withstand external pressures and career temptations. They were ready to face whatever challenges came next as true partners. The future was theirs to build together. 6 months after the medtech incident, Technova's social impact division had become a model for the entire tech industry. Naomi's healthcare platform was operating in over 50 communities, her educational technology initiative was launching in underprivileged schools across 3 states, and her financial inclusion software was helping low-income families access basic banking services. Christopher and Naomi had gone public with their relationship through a carefully orchestrated announcement that emphasized their professional accomplishments and mutual respect. The response had been overwhelmingly positive, with tech journalists praising their innovative partnership and social impact advocates celebrating their commitment to meaningful change. On a Friday evening in late spring, Christopher asked Naomi to meet him at Technova Tower after work hours. When she arrived, the building was mostly empty except for security staff. Why are we here so late? Naomi asked as they rode the elevator to the executive floor. I wanted to show you something, Christopher replied mysteriously. He led her to the roof of the building, which had been transformed into a beautiful garden space with comfortable seating areas and panoramic views of the city. Strings of warm lights created a magical atmosphere, and a small table was set with candles and flowers. Christopher, this is incredible. When did you do all this? I've been working on it for weeks, he admitted. I wanted to create a space where we could have privacy and remember how far we've both come. As they sat at the candlelit table, Christopher poured champagne and raised his glass in a toast. To the most remarkable woman I've ever known, he said. To your brilliance, your compassion, and your courage to change the world. To the man who saw my potential when no one else would, Naomi replied. To partnerships that make both people stronger. As they clinked glasses, Naomi noticed that Christopher seemed nervous, which was unusual for someone normally so composed in every situation. Naomi, Christopher began, setting down his champagne and taking her hands in his. A year ago, I thought I had everything I wanted. A successful company, financial security, professional recognition. But I was missing the most important thing. What was that? Someone to share it all with. Someone who challenges me to be better, who reminds me why success matters, who makes every day more meaningful just by being part of it. Christopher stood and walked around the table to kneel beside Naomi's chair. Her heart began racing as she realized what was happening. Naomi Johnson, you came into my life as a delivery girl who turned out to be a genius. You became a colleague who transformed into a partner. You're the woman I love, the leader I admire, and the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. He pulled out a ring box and opened it to reveal a stunning diamond engagement ring that caught the light from the city skyline. Will you marry me? Naomi felt tears of joy streaming down her face as she looked at the ring, at Christopher's hopeful expression, and at the beautiful rooftop garden he had created for this moment. Yes, she whispered, then louder, yes, absolutely yes. Christopher slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood to embrace and kiss her as the city lights twinkled around them. I can't believe this is real, Naomi said through happy tears. A year ago I was worried about paying rent. Now I'm engaged to the most wonderful man I've ever met. A year ago I was successful but lonely, Christopher replied. Now I'm successful and deeply in love with my best friend and professional partner. They spent the evening on the rooftop, talking about their dreams for the future and making plans for both their wedding and their continued work together. What do you think our wedding should be like? Christopher asked as they slow danced to music from his phone. Something that reflects who we are, Naomi replied. Elegant but not pretentious. Focused on celebrating with people we care about rather than impressing anyone. I love that you always think about what really matters, Christopher said, spinning her gently under the stars. I learned that from you. Before we met, I was so focused on just surviving that I forgot to think about what kind of life I actually wanted. And now I want a life where we're building something meaningful together. Where we're using our success to help other people. Where we're partners in everything. Christopher kissed her forehead tenderly. That's exactly the life I want too. By the way, are you rooting for Naomi and Christopher's love story? Does their journey from delivery girl to CEO's fiancé inspire you to believe in second chances and true love? Don't forget to subscribe for more heartwarming stories like this one, and share in the comments what you love most about their relationship. 3 months later, on a beautiful Saturday in late summer, Naomi and Christopher were married in the garden of a historic mansion overlooking the harbor. The ceremony was attended by their families, close friends and colleagues from Technova who had become like family. Naomi wore an elegant ivory dress that complemented her natural beauty, while Christopher wore a classic black tuxedo with a bright blue tie that matched her favorite color. Elena, despite her health challenges, walked Naomi down the aisle with tears of pride in her eyes. Today we celebrate not just the union of two people, but the partnership of two souls who make each other stronger, said the officiant during the ceremony. Christopher and Naomi have already demonstrated that together they can accomplish remarkable things. Today they commit to building a life together that reflects their shared values of love, service and positive impact. As they exchanged vows, both Christopher and Naomi spoke from their hearts about the journey that had brought them together and their excitement about the future they would build as husband and wife. Naomi, Christopher said during his vows, you taught me that the best partnerships aren't about complementing each other's weaknesses, but about amplifying each other's strengths. You make me a better CEO, a better man and a better human being. Christopher, Naomi replied, you saw potential in me when I had stopped believing in myself. You gave me opportunities to grow and the support to succeed. But most importantly, you loved me for who I am, not who you thought I could become. The reception was filled with laughter, dancing and heartfelt speeches from friends and colleagues. Jennifer, who had become one of Naomi's closest friends at Technova, gave a toast that brought tears to everyone's eyes. When Naomi first arrived at our company, she was underestimated by almost everyone except Christopher, Jennifer said. But she didn't let that stop her from showing us all what determination and brilliance look like. Today she's not just our colleague but our inspiration. Christopher's best man, his college roommate Michael, spoke about how Christopher had changed since meeting Naomi. I've known Christopher for 15 years, and I've never seen him as happy or as focused as he's been this past year, Michael said. Naomi didn't just capture his heart, she helped him discover what really matters in life. As the evening wound down, Christopher and Naomi took a moment alone on the mansion's terrace, looking out at the water and reflecting on how dramatically their lives had changed. Do you ever think about that day when you delivered food to Technova? Christopher asked, holding his new wife close. Every day, Naomi replied. I think about how different my life would be if you hadn't stood up for me when those programmers were being cruel. I think about how different my life would be if you hadn't had the courage to accept my challenge and show them what you were capable of. We were both exactly where we needed to be that day, Naomi observed, ready to recognize something special in each other. As they danced one final dance as newlyweds, both Christopher and Naomi knew that their love story was really just beginning. They had built successful careers, overcome professional challenges, and created a relationship based on mutual respect and shared values. But more than that, they had proven that love and success don't have to be separate pursuits. The best partnerships, whether personal or professional, are built on bringing out the best in each other and working together toward goals that matter. The delivery girl who had been mocked by programmers was now a respected technology leader and the wife of a billionaire CEO. But more importantly, she was a woman who had never compromised her values or forgotten where she came from. And the CEO who had built a successful company had found something more valuable than any business achievement: A true partner who shared his dreams and challenged him to be the best version of himself. As they left their wedding reception that night, driving toward their honeymoon and their future together, both Naomi and Christopher knew that their greatest adventures were still ahead of them. They had learned that the most beautiful love stories aren't about perfect people finding each other, but about imperfect people choosing to build something perfect together. And they were ready to spend the rest of their lives doing exactly that.